The invention of the cannon in the 12th century marked a significant turning point in military history, but it soon took on a chilling role as a tool for execution. This powerful weapon was repurposed for horrifying acts, with condemned prisoners strapped to its muzzle and blown apart. Disturbing images and accounts from this era reveal a grim aspect of warfare that has largely been forgotten. The identities of those unfortunate souls facing their fate with their backs to the cannons have faded into obscurity. Although their names are lost to time, their stories serve as a stark reminder of the brutality that has characterized human history. George Carter Stent vividly described the execution process. The prisoner is generally tied to a gun with the upper part of the small of his back resting against the muzzle. When the gun is fired, his head is seen to go straight up into the air some 40 or 50 feet. The arms fly off right and left, high up in the air, and fall at perhaps 100 yards distance. The legs drop to the ground beneath the muzzle of the gun, and the body is literally blown away altogether, not a vestige being seen. The practice known as blowing from a gun can be traced back to the 16th century and persisted into the 20th century. The Portuguese utilized this brutal method from 1509 across their empire, which extended from Ceylon, modern-day Sri Lanka, to Mozambique and Brazil. Similarly, during the 17th and 18th centuries, the Mughals employed this method primarily against rebels. However, it was under British East India Company rule in India that blowing from a cannon became closely associated with severe punishment. Following the Indian Rebellion of 1857, this method was frequently used to execute rebels and sepoys accused of desertion. Drawing from Mughal practices, British authorities adopted this gruesome technique in the latter half of the 18th century. The destruction of bodies through this method served a specific religious function within Indian culture. It denied proper funeral rites according to Hindu and Muslim customs, extending punishment beyond death itself for those who believed in these traditions. Typically, victims were secured in front of a cannon before it was fired. While some accounts mention loading the cannon with grape shot or cannonballs, it was more common to use blank cartridges. An example from Afghanistan in 1839 describes how 3 men were tied to cannons with ropes to ensure they could not escape. Interestingly, there are reports of executions going awry. During a mass execution at Firozpur in 1857, some cannons were mistakenly loaded with grape shot instead of blanks, injuring spectators and soldiers alike. Blowing people from cannons was recognized as an old Mughal punishment in India. For instance, Humayun reportedly executed 100 Afghan prisoners by this method in 1526 during conflicts against the Lodi dynasty. Emperor Aurangzeb also ordered similar executions against rebels during his reign. One notable case involves Sikh General Banda Singh Bahadur's son being executed by this method after his father's defeat in 1716. Additionally, during Jahangir's reign, 1605 to 1627, 6 mullahs were executed for approving an abduction. The British extensively used blowing from a cannon during their suppression of the Indian Rebellion of 1857. Reports indicate that out of hundreds executed during this period, many met their end by cannon fire. Even after 1857, this method continued to be employed. For example, in 1871, 65 members of the Sikh sect, Namtari, were executed using this brutal technique. The practice of blowing from cannons serves as a chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for violence and cruelty throughout history. As we reflect on these dark chapters, it is essential to remember those whose stories have been lost and ensure that such brutality is never repeated.